Welcome everyone to Call to the Bullpen, episode 4. That's 4 times the fun, 4 times the banter, and 4 times the idiocy. I am Jared Silberclite and joined by
Austin Keeney.
There we go. That's the pizzazz we're looking for. So let's just dive right into it because we got stuff to talk about with baseball and football and. Yeah, so let's start off with the Yankees. Didi Gregorius suffered an injury yesterday in another Yankees freak accident that occurred to a star player after Aaron Judge gets a chip fracture on his wrist with a hit by pitch, and now Didi tumbles over in this first base collision that should not happen 99.9% of the time in baseball. I mean, watching the play, it just kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, like you said, it's a freak accident, and especially unfortunate to somebody like Didi, who's a huge player on that team and fills a really big role for the Yankees in this playoff push. It's a play that I've really never seen a collision like that, and I've been playing for quite some time. So to see something like that happen and a star player go out on the disabled list is never a good thing.
And yeah, they're leaning on him more with Judge being out and Sanchez being out, of course. Not to mention he, as of late, had been one of the team's better hitters. I think that it had been Stanton, Didi, and Andujar that have been the 3 best hitters on the team lately. Didi's definitely been showing some of that early season pop return. And this was just such a freak play because you watch what happened. So what happened here, it's a ground ball it looks like base hit to right field, but they got a shift on, and the second baseman's there to cut it off, but he's already in right field. So this is looking like a pretty impossible throw, and it's one of those things where Didi is going to beat it out regardless, but you still have to run hard because it's going to be a somewhat close play. But due to the way the second baseman was positioned, had to make this really forced, awkward throw that required Morales, the first baseman, to line up in foul territory. So he's blocking Didi's running lane, but not blocking the bag. So it's technically not interference, but there was no way to avoid this collision with the way he was lined up. And I mean, you don't ordinarily see a first baseman line up in foul territory, and it really irritated me because you could tell right when this ball was hit that if you got a guy, Didi's not the fastest guy in the world, but any guy who's a decent runner is going to beat this thing out. And to make that throw you knew he didn't have a prayer of making the out, and all it's doing is creating a dangerous situation for the people in the field.
Yeah, and it's sad to see somebody go down on a freak accident and a freak play that really shouldn't even have happened. Yeah,
it's disappointing. Andujar has been he's been hitting really well for the Yankees, though. So if this is like a state of the lineup address, he's been white hot lately. He's been
even all season. I mean, he's there's a stat the other day. I think he's got 48 doubles or something like that on the season.
Extra base hits,
extra base hits,
about 36 doubles,
something like that. And he's like 4th on the all-time list of doubles in a season. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. But he's using his speed to his advantage too. But still, I mean, legging out doubles and triples all season.
He's having a power stroke right now, though. He only had, he's been a consistent hitter all season long. I think the average has pretty much stayed within 290 to 305 all season. So he's definitely been the team's most consistent hitter in that regard. But in July, although he maintained the average, he only, I think, had 3 home runs all month, and he's already got way more than that in August. So he's definitely having a power stroke right now, and Stanton's mashing home runs just like they hoped he would, just like last season, total second half player. So they're going to need those guys, especially because Didi going down when you're already out Judge is not good.
Yeah, and having Sanchez come back in the near future is a positive, even with Didi going down, because that's a power bat that you'll be able to replace some of the guys that aren't producing. Hopefully Sanchez can produce up to what he's able to and not what he was just before his DL stint. I think he's doing a AAA rehab start this week.
He's scheduled to do AAA this weekend with the Rail Riders, and I think the idea is he's just going to be with the team through the weekend, and then he'll rejoin the Yankees early next week. And the good news here is this week you've got some real bottom-level competition. You've got 2 games in Miami and then 4 games in Baltimore, so it's never a good time to lose anybody, but
Yeah, we're not going into another 4-game set with the Red Sox.
Yeah,
so.
it's nothing like that. So that's good. And Sabathia's not really expected to miss any time. He pretty much just he got a day off, is essentially. But
yeah.
So.
Which is good to rest him because he's been the workhorse that he is. So we're gonna need him.
Sure. Yeah. Severino got his 16th win of the season. He looked close to his old self, but not quite. I think he caught kind of a tough break against the Blue Jays, just with the fact that the guys were fouling off a lot of pitches. I mean, it's tough because his strike ratio was pretty good in that game, but you got to make these guys miss. You can't let you've got to make a miss if you want to be the ace, if you want to be one of the elite pitchers in baseball, which is how he was throughout the first half of the season. 5 innings just isn't good enough. He's got to find a way to keep that pitch count down, and 6 innings should be the norm for him. He really should be getting closer to 7 or 8 if he wants to be at that. If he's supposed to be at that, Chris Sale, Justin Verlander level, that's what separates him from them. Is those guys will finish hitters in 3 or 4 pitches. They will get through innings in 10 pitches or 12 pitches. He's got to get to that level.
Yeah, I mean, having guys foul pitches off, for the first 3-4 innings and running your pitch count up is not good. Like you said, he really does have to finish these guys, and he's not going to be elite ace status without it.
And on that note, Chris Sale is back on the disabled list.
Another 10-day DL stint.
Yeah, another 10-day DL stint. When you think about that, I mean, it seemed like the Red Sox were being precautionary when he was on the DL about a week or two ago. But after just another start or two, he's right back where he left off.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I don't know the inside of it, but I would think it's something along the lines of what they're doing with CC and maybe just giving them a little bit of rest. They have such a lead in that division, and in in the AL East, maybe they're just giving him a rest so that he is fresh going into the playoffs or going into the end of the season. Get him another couple starts towards the end of the season to get him, red hot again. But if the guy needs a day off, the guy needs a day off. He's probably going to win the Cy Young this year. So there's, I don't know. It would be nice to see. It's sad. I don't want to say I want to see him hurt, but if the Yankees got to face them at some point, it'd be nice to see the Yankees not face Sale. But I think he's fine.
Right. He's on the DL with the shoulder inflammation, so it is the same injury. Alex Cora said that he's not putting a specific timeline on when he's returning. I think that, like you said, because the Red Sox have such a ridiculous lead right now, and they're on track to essentially, if they hold up at this pace, they're going to clinch the division they could clinch it when they play the Yankees in the middle of September. So that could be it, where they just take 1 or 2 games in those series, and that's the nail in the coffin if they continue at this clip. So it sounds like they're going to be extra cautious with Sale because the objective is, of course, to get him healthy for October. And not only that, but the Red Sox have proven that they've been able to win with whoever's on the hill for them, because that lineup, I mean, we're getting into mid-late August, and J.D. Martinez and Mookie Betts still haven't slowed down.
No, and they're not going to. We're all waiting for this 5-6 game losing streak, and it just hasn't happened.
Exactly. There's been no slump at all, and they're still just crushing these teams. And it's not even just Mookie and J.D. I mean, you look at what Xander Bogaerts has been doing lately as well. It's the top to bottom, especially the top half, that they've got the scariest.
Their whole lineup is nasty.
Scariest 1 through 5 in baseball right now. AL Central, it's been the same story all season. Indians doing some pretty impressive things offensively, but you just don't trust them come playoff time with the pitching, really, because the bullpen is such a question mark. I mean, Trevor Bauer's having an unbelievable season on the hill, but we've seen him blow a lot of late leads, and either the Yankees or Red Sox would pretty much have that thing clinched already. But
if the Yankees or the Red Sox were in any other division in the league, they'd be in front by. I mean, the Red Sox are in front by 10 games anyway, so they'd be in front by 20.
20, exactly.
But the Yankees would be in front, by 10 games in any other division. So it's interesting to see.
The Indians have. I mean, it's pretty much been the same story there. It feels like since April, the Indians are the only team in that division with a winning record.
Yeah. And like you said, they're not you can't trust them in the playoffs. I mean, you could never really trust the Indians in the playoffs. So we'll see.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just crazy to me the 180 that they've turned, because when they went to the World Series 2 years ago, Francona had that kind of unconventional managing of his pitching staff where the starters were going 4 innings, but that was okay because they had so much pen depth. But now it's so different. It's just they're completely unreliable with the late leads, and I mean, they're going to have to rely on the offense. I think Francisco Lindor and Jose Ramirez have been phenomenal this season, especially Ramirez looking like a dark horse MVP candidate. If somebody wasn't batting 350, then he might be he might be a favorite. But unfortunately, I mean, Mookie Betts, his all around stats are so good that people are saying that he's a no-brainer even over his teammate JD Martinez. Because as good as JD's been batting, what is it, 325 with like 38 home runs,
give or take.
Yeah, it's like that looks like nothing compared to Mookie.
No, I mean Mookie's been absolutely unreal. I mean, he's hitting the hell out of the ball, and good for him. I mean, if he can keep it up, it's one of the better seasons in the history of baseball. So
now, one division race in the American League that the game's definitely changed has been the American League West, because the Astros' injuries have caught up to them in August. They've been slumping. They've lost 12 of their last 20, and it came to a point where the Athletics actually caught them over the weekend. They took 2 of 3, and on Saturday they were tied for first.
Yeah, I mean, and they're only 1 game back right now, but I mean, in the last 10 games, it's obvious though. Oakland's 7-3 in their last 10, and Houston's 3-7. So I mean, you drop 4 games right there. It doesn't really help.
And then that's the thing about staying within reach in the division, because when you get to these late season series, that's been the thing with Houston. They dropped a set to Oakland. They got swept by Seattle. They have another set with Seattle this week on top of that. So that's really your make or break time, where you could either put away the threats to the division or you let them right back into the race. And with Oakland, they're a young, scrappy team. Chris Davis has had a crazy good season. I mean, he's I think people, he kind of flies under the radar because I think people see him more, almost like a Mark Reynolds type, like a home run or bust, but he's driving in a ton of runs this year. I think he's almost at 100 RBI, and now that they have Trevor Cahill back from the DL, that adds a lot of depth to the starting rotation, because you have him and Sean Manaea. That's a pretty good 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I mean, Oakland's definitely scary this year. I mean, it should be interesting to see what they do down the stretch, but the fact that they're, riding up Houston's rear end here is, it's interesting to see. I mean, it's going to be a tight race to the end, even with Seattle. I mean, Seattle is only 4.5 games back in that division. It's not unobtainable, especially with Cano coming back. I mean, that adds, the lineup depth that Robinson Cano could add on any team that he's on.
Absolutely. And this, of course, is part of the adult-oriented part of the discussion where we talk about things riding up rear ends. So viewer discretion is advised. Put the parental advisory sticker on this episode. Talking about Seattle. Yeah, Seattle. Robinson Cano being back is big, and we're just talking about the series that they have with Houston. I mean, they swept Houston in Houston. Now they got them at home. You got to figure, you're 4.5.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to sweep them again. Who knows?
You're 4.5 games out. They're 3.5 back with a wild card. So it's really on Seattle. I mean, the ball's in their court, because the NL wildcard race is such a schmoz with so many teams vying for both of those spots. You have no idea how it's going to go down. But with it's very clear-cut in the American League right now. I mean, the Rays have been decent, but they're way too far behind to make up enough ground to threaten for a spot. But you've got the Yankees pretty much locked in to that top wild card, and it's gonna come down to we've been saying Oakland or Seattle, but now it's looking like if Houston isn't careful, they could find themselves in that one-game playoff. And how weird would that be? You think anyone would have expected to see the Yankees and the Astros winner take all in that one-game wild card?
No, and I can't say that I really want to face them either. I mean, I don't want to face Verlander in a one-game playoff, regardless of how Severino's pitching. He's a great pitcher, but Verlander's just been unreal lately.
Well, that's the problem, is he hasn't looked like the ace, yeah.
But if he's back to, last year's form in the playoffs, that's not somebody that I want to face. Tonight's looking interesting on that Seattle-Houston game. I think they brought Felix Hernandez back out from the bullpen.
Bullpen.
They put him in the bullpen for a couple days, and now he's looking like he's going to start the game. So we'll see what goes on there. But that's a big game to watch.
It's such a tough call. It's such a tough call, because Felix Hernandez obviously is having a really, really tough season. His ERA is absolute hot air balloon right now at 5.62, which is way above his career norm. He has a losing record despite playing for a winning team, a team that's close to 20 games over 500, and the WHIP's pretty high as well. But it's one of those things where you have a team that's relatively new, relatively young, and new to competing at this stage of the season. The Mariners, they've got a long playoff drought going on right now. But so it's one of those things where the guy's struggling, but you're looking to him to provide some kind of veteran leadership, and he has been great in the past. Obviously, he's had a very good career. Tough matchup tonight against Garrett Cole, but they're going to try to put their best foot forward. I do expect Houston to hang on ultimately. I think that what we've seen is just a combination of all those injuries, like we were talking a few weeks ago. Boom, boom, boom. Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa, George Springer. Losing all those guys at once, it will catch up to you, especially when you're trying to fend off good teams.
Yeah, and speaking of Altuve, I'm pretty sure he's coming back this week. They said that he's coming off the DL in the next couple days.
Yeah, that's timely because, like we said, the Astros, they're paying for having all those injuries all at once. So getting Altuve back, who when he's healthy has been one of the most complete hitters in the game the last few years. So there's no doubt that if there's any hope of a championship repeat, they need Altuve to be every bit as good as he's been for the team over the last few years. So that is your state of the AL West address. And now let's shift gears, looking in the National League, where obviously we have way tighter pennant race going on. There's really no clear-cut winner. I feel like a broken record saying this, but you look up and down, and nobody's knocking anyone's socks off in this entire league. The team with the best record in the National League is the Chicago Cubs, and they haven't looked good at all lately.
No, they really haven't looked like a playoff caliber team.
The lineup has been mediocre at best.
Javi, they've been playing 500 ball for the last month.
Maybe, I think even more than that. It feels like they've just been middle of the road for a really long time, and they've been in a division with a lot of other teams that have been inconsistent, so they've held on to that lead. But Javi Baez is having a great season, no doubt. Chris Bryant's been okay. The rotation has been such a letdown. This is a team that had so much. It was rich in starting pitching not too long ago, and now you look at them like, if it wasn't for that Cole Hamels trade, they'd really be looking dry right now, because John Lester he's not had a great season, and they don't have a lot of depth behind the two of them.
Yeah, John Lester hasn't been looking like the old John Lester. And St. Louis is creeping up on him. Not that Milwaukee's any farther behind. They're 3.5 games out, and St. Louis is 4 out. But St. Louis has been hot. They're 8-2 over the last 10, when Milwaukee's 4-6, and the Cubs are 5-5. So,
and they haven't even been talked about as a playoff team for much of the year. But now they're only a half game out of the wild card.
Yeah, it's another team to look at, and another great pennant race that we're going to be able to watch.
They've been 14-4 in August. Matt Carpenter, this is a guy who was not really he's a veteran, 5 to 10 year veteran, never been known as an elite power hitter, and he's just pounding the home runs this year. Ever since June, he's just been mashing the ball. And it's funny, the Cardinals, I'm sure over the last 10 to 15 years, they've always been that team that they've had some great top to bottom seasons, but they've also had some years where, both the years where they won the World Series in 2006 and 2011, they were really under the radar and just kind of snuck into the playoffs, and people expected them to go out like a light, and then they just got hot out of nowhere. And I think this year in the National League, more than ever, it's going to come down to who gets the momentum. heading into October, because there's no team is looking even remotely dominant here.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's like I said, it's going to be a tight pennant race, and it should be interesting to see.
And over in the NL East, you've got the Braves and Phillies. Just they've been going back and forth for quite some time now. It seems like, one day one's in first place, one day the other. But with the Nationals, I think because Atlanta and Philly have been so neck and neck, people have I think some people have been expecting the Nationals at some point to get hot and surge right up there with them, but now they've dipped below 500. They've been slumping lately, and they just put Bryce Harper on waivers.
Yeah, I don't think anything's going to come of that, honestly. If nothing came of that at the trade deadline, I don't know why anything would come of it now. I guess you give up less for him because they only have him for another month. I don't see him going anywhere unless it's going to be to a team that will re-sign him in the offseason. It would be interesting to see him go to certain places, but I just don't think
where do you see as a potential destination for him?
Philly, maybe. Philly? And it sounds crazy because it's within the division, but I think that's a team that might pull the trigger to get him and his ability to push him past Atlanta.
And that's been talked about. There have been a lot of the Bryce Harper rumors. There's been a good amount that have focused on him becoming a Philly next year, but I can't see it happening right now. I'm with you. I don't think that anything's going to really come of him being on waivers right now. I don't see him being moved before the end of the season. I think he'll just make his decision in the offseason. I know a lot of people, like several years ago, were saying that he was going to be a Yankee, but now that they've got Stanton in that long-term contract, and the fact that they still aren't out of the Jacoby Ellsbury nightmare, that makes the salary space issue just a little bit tighter than it would need to be to welcome in a guy like Harper, who, in my opinion, is going to be seeking too much money. I think he's going to be...
Yeah, I would love to see him be a Yankee. Harper's been I don't want to say an idol of mine, but I've definitely enjoyed watching him play over the years, especially being pretty close to his age. I think he's only, 26? So, I played for a lot of the time that he had. Obviously, he got a little farther than I did. However, I'd love to see him become a Yankee. I just, like you said, the salary cap might not be there, but in a trade situation, I could see somebody like Brett Gardner going, maybe a couple prospects here or there, but I can see to open up that outfield space. I love Gardy to death, but Harper's a little bit better of a hitter, got a better arm and a better fielder.
Well, he's a lot better.
He's a lot better, and he's got a lot more years on him. So, I can maybe see something like that where Brett Gardner's involved in a trade and Bryce Harper comes over.
Well, the thing that gets me about Harper is they're talking like he's going to be seeking the most lucrative contract in MLB history now that he's going to be a free agent. And I don't think he's worth that. If you look at his career numbers, they really just don't reflect that of an all-time great player. I think that he's got a diverse skill set. I think he's
he's still only 26. He's young.
Well, yeah, but he's
been on the Nationals forever. You're not talking about a 96 Yankee World Series team, or the Red Sox right now. I'm sure if he was on the Red Sox right now, he'd be putting up ridiculous numbers because the rest of the team's putting up ridiculous numbers. When you play on the Mets, you're never that good. Look at David Wright. David Wright probably would have been a lot better playing on a different team.
Well, and to that point, I raise you a Mike Trout. Because to me, Trout has been everything that they've said that Bryce Harper is supposed to be and more. And I think that he's demonstrated year in, year out consistency. Bryce Harper one season will bat 300, and the next look at this year. He's down to he's hitting 245 right now. And yeah, you can't control the lack of lineup depth, so that's going to impact your RBI total, but it certainly shouldn't impact your average, your on base percentage, your slugging. And I think that he's shown. He's a very talented player, but I'm just saying, if you want to be the highest paid player in the history of Major League Baseball, then you need to show that you are that much better than everybody else. I don't think he's done that.
I mean, the numbers don't lie. I can't argue on the numbers. He's done what he's done. I think he's young and has more time to develop, and I think in a better situation on a better team, he can flourish.
All I'm saying is don't give him $500 million.
No, I don't think he deserves $500 million. I mean, a couple hundred I could see, 350. I mean, I think he's still a positive guy to have on a team.
What are your thoughts on the long-term contracts in baseball? Because in my personal opinion, I think that they've led to more problems than good things. When you're talking about locking players up for more than 6 years, I think that 6 years should be the absolute most that any player is signed for. Just because how many times have we seen injuries and performance deterioration over a period of time, especially when. I mean, I think that people are starting to learn a little bit. Like, these big contracts are being handed out to guys when they're in their early to mid-20s versus when they hit 30, because that's when you see the situations like Jacoby Ellsbury, Alex Rodriguez's second contract, Robinson Cano with the Mariners. I think for the most part people are smartening up, but I just think that teams are really putting themselves at the mercy of these players when you're giving them 8 to 10 year deals.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody past their past their mid-20s should be given a 10-year contract. Nobody near the age of 30 should be signed for 10 years unless there's, a stipulation where almost like a reverse guaranteed money where, all right, no matter what happens, you're guaranteed 100 of the 300, or you're guaranteed 50 of the 150. If you had something reverse, like, well, you know what, we're going to evaluate this after 6 years, and we have a clause that we can shorten it or re-sign you or something. I mean, would the players go for it? Probably not. Would their agents go for it? Obviously not, because they're going to make money the longer term that they're signed. But either that or you just need to start giving shorter contracts, because guys like Jacoby Ellsbury, like you said, who the Yankees are literally paying to do nothing, or guys like A-Rod, who the Yankees had to pay to leave because they didn't want him there anymore.
Exactly.
I don't think it's a thing. I don't think you can keep going that way.
Yeah, and I think that the way to get out of this pickle that the teams and the GMs have, and the front offices have found themselves in, is you're going to see. I think you should see higher annual salaries for a shorter period of time, kind of like Zach Greinke not too long ago. I think that when he agreed to his deal with the Diamondbacks, it was the most lucrative single season salary, at least for a pitcher. And I think that that's the way that you're going to get out of this. If you're going to guarantee the players a certain amount of money per year, okay, that instead of, you can lock these players up for $250 million for 10 years, or we'll give you 30 a year for 3 years and see how you do, because I think that just puts teams in a better position, because that way...
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, after 5-6 years, if they want to do a 10-year contract, they can either dump them or figure out a different way to go.
I think you just add on to it. You just do another few years.
Correct.
And that way you can see performance.
It's like CeCe, who's been going year by year for the last 4 or 5 years now.
And you can see the performance deterioration midway through. So imagine if it was a 4-year deal, where in that 4th year you could see a little bit of deterioration. You're like, all right, well, like, we'll give you another 4-year deal, but maybe we're going to take your salary down from $22 million to $18 million based on, again, rather than just guaranteeing the same money year in, year out. It has to be performance based. That's the only way to make it fair. Your pay should be commensurate to your production.
That's how regular jobs work. So I don't see why it wouldn't be.
Yep.
Like I said, these 10-year contracts just don't make any sense.
Yep. So on that note, we're going to wrap up the MLB discussion with some NL West talk, because we've got another real hairy division race going on here. Actually, I think it's the hairiest, because the Dodgers are now in 3rd place. Everybody, the Rockies have completely shot up the ladder. They're now a half game out of 1st place. They've got the lead in a wild card spot. And it's them and the Diamondbacks right now. The Diamondbacks have played one more game than them, so they're a half game up. But, man, Colorado, I mean...
out of nowhere, right?
Yeah,
8-2 in the last 10, and, half a game out from Arizona.
Yeah.
And nothing anybody saw coming.
This is a team that's been strong offensively for years, though. I mean, Trevor Story, we saw him during his rookie campaign. He wowed everyone, but now he's really taken the next step, and he's on track to finish over 100 ribbies, over 30 homers. He's just been really strong all season long. Nolan Arenado has been one of the most underappreciated hitters in baseball for the last several years. People act like his stats don't matter because he plays in Coors Field. I don't care. You still have to make contact.
Yeah, I mean, you're not a major league batter if you don't hit the ball.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's still got to he's still got to attack these pitchers, and he's especially you're playing in a division against the Dodgers, who've always been last few years threat pitching wise. So Arenado, year in year out, has been like just an RBI machine. He's got a ton of pop, and this could be finally maybe his time where he should be in the NL MVP discussion if the Rockies are able to persevere and get to the playoffs. Because really, if you look at the numbers, I mean...
Yeah, I mean, he's batting 309 with 30 home runs and 86 RBIs. And, I mean, he's got a pretty solid on-base percentage, too. So, I mean, it
you got
makes
Charlie
sense.
Blackmon in there.
Yeah.
Kyle Freeland. I mean, that's the thing. They've never been known for their pitching, but, he's pitching to a 2.96 ERA at this point. And Wade Davis he's up in there with some of the most saves in baseball this year. Kind of a higher ERA for a closer, but nonetheless, they've
getting the job done. That's all that matters.
They've really impressed everyone, and the Diamondbacks are still clinging to that first place spot. With Paul Goldschmidt, who's like me, is a fellow member of the tribe, so I tip my cap to him. And yeah, that's your state of the NL West right now, and real tight pennant race in the National League, right? I mean, there is no clear-cut World Series favorite.
Yeah, and I mean, it's gonna, like I said before about the American League divisions. I mean, it's gonna be fun to watch, and I mean, I'd like to see Colorado maybe come out on top over there. I think Arizona's a great team. I'm kind of getting sick of the Dodgers being in the race every single year, but
Clayton Kershaw's back, and he's back to his old self.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. So I mean, you never know what's going to happen over there. I mean, San Fran's definitely out, so they're not even something to talk about really.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still only 8 games behind, but I don't think that anything's going to happen
with a tight race. They don't have the depth.
No,
they really
exactly.
don't.
So it should be interesting, to see those 3 teams battle over the next month or so.
Sure, no doubt. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we get into the NFL portion of the program, we're gonna talk a little pro wrestling here, because we're both fans, and I'm actually involved in professional wrestling as a manager on the independent circuit. So it's been an interest of ours for years, and we want to occasionally work in some pro wrestling topics. We've talked about guests and certain guests in the future as well. So we thought that this would be a good time to do a little wrestling talk, because WWE just had their SummerSlam event last night at the Barclays Center, which is their biggest show of the year behind WrestleMania. And Ronda Rousey, the former UFC women's champion, is now a champion in both MMA and pro wrestling, because she won the WWE Raw Women's title last night.
Yeah, I mean, good for her. I mean, it's a tough thing to leave one sport and go into another, especially something that there was a lot of criticism in, and obviously she had, some people backing her, but there was definitely a lot of haters and a lot of criticism coming into the WWE and leaving the UFC. So I mean, it's good to see her being successful and enjoying what she's doing, and getting out there and winning.
And I think that, as a longtime wrestling viewer, watching her in the ring, first of all, just being as phenomenal of an athlete as she is, I mean, that's going to help the transition period more than anything. I mean, she's put in the time with the training, no doubt. But more than anything, professional wrestling, the main goal, you have to capture the audience's attention with your performance. You have to play a character out there. And last night, with the structure of the match, with her essentially running through Alexa Bliss in less than 5 minutes, it wasn't a competitive back-and-forth match. The success of that was going to hinge entirely on her charisma, and she hit a home run. I mean, that's the one thing that stuck out to me about Ronda, what she's made up for, and her lack of experience with pro wrestling is, number one, her presentation, and number two, just the fact that she gets it. And her facial expressions are really great, and I think that's why people have been able to connect with her so far. That's why I see her having a really good career in the WWE. Plenty of people have been able to do both. throughout history, most prominently Brock Lesnar, who was also on the show last night, and he's thinking about making another return to the UFC. So, yeah, seems like good things in the future for Ronda Rousey. Happy for her success.
Yeah, and I mean, I can remember back to her first match. We were all sitting around watching it and weren't really sure what we were going to expect. And she really came out and impressed us. So I think that was WrestleMania, this past WrestleMania, right?
Yeah, it was the mixed tag with her and Kurt Angle versus Triple H and Stephanie.
Yeah, and she really came out and wowed us. I mean, that was one of the better matches that I can remember of the night. And she really did a great job. So, I mean, it's good to see that she's doing well and having fun doing it, and hopefully she has a good career doing it too.
And one more note on wrestling before we get to football. Next April, this is something that I think a lot of people thought that they might not see in their lifetime, but there's another company besides WWE that is running Madison Square Garden. Not only running Madison Square Garden, but sold the place out. This will be the night before WrestleMania next year, which is going to be held at MetLife Stadium. It is a super show with Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling, the same night that WWE is running the Barclays Center for NXT. So you're going to have two major shows going out at New York's two biggest indoor arenas. And, I mean, Austin, you and I both, essentially post-Attitude Era, we grew up only knowing WWE as the only wrestling that was out there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit of TNA, but that was just a lot of wash-up guys going over there to end their careers for the most part.
Did you ever think that you would see something like this where there's non-WWE wrestling in Madison Square Garden, and not like that to draw a crowd like that?
I mean, not in this time frame. I mean, not with the WWE still being as big as it is. It's not like they've fallen off the map. It's not like they have a bad rap. It's not like they're not doing well business-wise. So for another company to come into their territory, I mean, Madison Square Garden has been a staple of the WWE since literally the beginning of the WWE.
Oh,
so, that's not like they're not using a new arena. They're not going out to Long Island to go into the Nassau Coliseum. I mean, they're in the WWE's backyard running a show the night before the WWE's biggest show of the year. So it's impressive. And I don't know what's going to come of it, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I'm certainly excited because there are a lot of guys that I've worked with or shared locker rooms with who are going to be wrestling on that show, Madison Square Garden, so I'm pretty jealous of those guys. But it's a groundbreaking night and great for the fans as well. So pretty happy to see all that going down. So switching gears into NFL talk, we've got more. The preseason keeps motoring along. We've got injuries. We've got signings resulting from injuries. We've got rumors. All that good preseason prep. First and foremost, AJ McCarron, they thought that he broke his collarbone, and it turns out it was just a hairline fracture, and now he's not expected to miss any time, so you thought that the time was now for Josh Allen on the Buffalo Bills, and now it
still can be, though. I mean, he's putting up a show and a fight to prove that this could be the time for Josh Allen, or maybe even after a couple weeks of AJ McCarron probably just being AJ McCarron's old self and losing the first 3 games of the season for the Bills, maybe they might give Josh Allen a shot. I mean, he's the real deal. I mean, he's no joke of a quarterback, and he's the reason he was drafted when he was drafted. I think he can really hold himself in that on that team and running that offense. And, I don't know. I mean, obviously, AJ McCarron's got the starting spot as long as he's healthy for now. But I can see after a couple more weeks of AJ McCarron, like I said, just being AJ McCarron, Josh Allen might get in there.
It wouldn't surprise me either. I mean, to me, the AJ McCarron signing, it was talked about when he was with Cincinnati. People speculated about him going to, to a team that was in more dire need of a quarterback for him to start for them. And to me, it just represents what I call the backup quarterback fallacy, which is when people are so used to the idea that a backup quarterback is supposed to get no playing time at all and maybe get a couple snaps during the season, that if they see a guy happen to get a couple starts, especially if he's on a team with another really good quarterback. They think that he's in the same system. He must be great. Do you remember Matt Flynn? Remember that big contract that he got from the Lions? Or it was either the Lions or the Seahawks. After
I think it was the Seahawks.
Yeah, it was. He started with one, and then he was traded to the other. He gets this big contract based off of this Week 17 game where the Packers weren't playing for anything, and they think, he's underneath Aaron Rodgers, and he must be like Aaron Rodgers Jr. Look at him quarterbacking the Packers and having one game throwing for 400 yards. And he winds up doing nothing. And it's happened with plenty of other guys. I think people are they get so overexcited that if a guy happens to get a little bit more playing time that you'd normally expect for a backup, that people automatically assume that this guy has what it takes to be a long-term starter in the league. And what does A.J. McCarron ever I think is, all in all, how many games has he started in his career? Maybe 10 or 11?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure of the stats on the top of my head. Let me see if I can pull them up.
Yeah, it's been nothing impressive. He played underneath Andy Dalton. I think that he's got a little bit of experience. You got to have some kind of insurance policy. But Josh Allen's your first-round draft pick, man. Yeah,
A.J. McCarron's career stats: started 3, played in 11.
Yeah.
64.7% pass completion.
Small sample size, though. Really
yeah, exactly.
How many passes?
Games isn't even a full season.
Yeah.
And that's over a 5-year time span. I mean, that's the 14, 15, 16, 17, and what will be the 18 season.
Yeah, and the Bills don't have A.J. Green either. So,
yeah, and he's thrown 2 interceptions, 6 touchdowns, and he's...
It was a few years ago. Again, it's a small sample size to judge from. I think that it's got to be Josh Allen's job for the taking, especially with... the Bills is obviously not a very prolific offense, so yeah, we'll just we'll see. I think that people were a little divided on Allen, but this job has to be his for the taking. I think that if he's half as good as they think he could be, I think that he will be the starter by midseason at the absolute latest.
I think by week 3. Really?
Well, yeah, it could happen. In other news, the Redskins have signed Adrian Peterson after losing Geis for the season. Adrian Peterson is going to be the big man on campus as far as at the top of the running back depth chart for Washington. They were talking about doing a running back by committee in response to Geis going down. Again, high draft pick, was figured to be a centerpiece of that running game. So now they're going with A. Pete. How do you see him faring?
I see him faring well. I mean, the Redskins still have Rob Kelly, who I think will probably start, depending on how AP does. I'm sure he's going to report relatively soon, I would think. And depending on how he does, and if he's still in the shape that he used to be in, or even close to it, I could see him obviously taking Rob Kelly's position from him. I mean, Rob Kelly's nothing phenomenal. He's really just a body for now. So I could see him doing well. He signed a 1-year, $1.015 million contract, so $1 million contract, and I can see him doing well. I mean, he's Adrian Peterson. If there's anybody that can pick it back up, it's him. And he could have had a shot in Arizona over there, but they didn't really use him as he wanted to be used, and maybe he'll be happy.
Yeah, I mean, he was okay at times last year, but I mean, football is a young man's game, and the running back position is especially a young man's game. So it's a type of thing where this is a guy who missed almost a whole season, not too long ago. Well, 2014 and 2016, he hardly played at all, and age is not on his side. Running back is the type of position where once you hit 27 or 28, people start calling you old and washed up, like you got gray hair or something like that. And it's gonna be, it's gonna be a revamped offense. Obviously, Alex Smith isn't the guy to really be throwing the ball 40 times a game, so Peterson should see some action. But I'd be cautious if I were Washington. I think that, again, he should figure into a back by committee type of role, but if you're expecting the former greatest running back in the entire NFL, then I think you're kind
of...
No,
I don't think he's going to do that, but I think that he'll definitely help the Redskins, even on some check down kind of plays and maybe save their arm. Maybe save Alex Smith's arm a bit,
Sure. Next up, we got Jalen Ramsey and his the Jalen Ramsey roast of quarterbacks, I guess, is what we're going to call this.
Called out every quarterback other than his own. Actually, he did say something about Bortles, but it wasn't bad.
They said that they should have put more faith in Bortles. Yeah, he tears down Joe Flacco, Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Josh Allen, just to name a few, and pretty much everybody else. And, I mean, you obviously expect the guy to stand up for his teammate, but you look kind of silly when you're tearing down half the quarterbacks in the league, and then you give Blake Bortles the benefit of the doubt. No offense to Blake, but let's go through some of these highlights. Jared Goff, average to above average. Josh Allen is trash. Dak Prescott, good. All right. Okay.
Eli Manning is apparently nothing without Odell Beckham Jr., which... some would argue. Ben Roethlisberger, he says, is decent at best.
Decent at best, yeah.
Andrew Luck is not good.
Andrew Luck is not good. Not good. Ryan Tannehill.
Haven't heard great things out of him.
Yep.
Matt Ryan is overrated.
But Blake do what he got to do. Yeah.
Blake do what he got to do.
Yeah, what does it do? Jalen Ramsey is, we talked about this last week, he's been known as a trash talk player. I mean, he's obviously very, very, very good at what he does. These comments are, I think he's just trying to stir the pot, trying to create some buzz for himself. Maybe he's trying to light a fire underneath the team because, I mean, I do empathize with Jacksonville a little bit if that team is really hungry this year because they they got robbed on that call in the AFC Championship game last year, and blowing that late lead to the Patriots has to sting when they were so close to reaching the Super Bowl. So, if Ramsey's trying to light a fire in the locker room, then and try to get his teammates all riled up and feel like it's them against the world, then if that's what he's trying to accomplish, maybe it'll work out because they do sound like a feisty bunch over there. They really feel like they kind of got screwed last year, and I'm sure they're. It always seems that way that, the team that loses the conference championship, and in a lot of cases they wind up being a favorite to win the conference next year.
I mean, their defense is nasty, so
they've
and hopefully their offense will pick it up, and Blake Bortles will do a little better.
This is on paper the best defense in football, most complete defense in football. They are just such a takeover threat. And not to mention the sacks. So, that's your Jalen Ramsey trash talk. Some teams are interested in trading for Teddy Bridgewater. Apparently, he's currently on the Jets. I think that the Bills would have been potentially in that discussion before they got better news than expected about AJ McCarron.
Yeah, I mean, I could have seen Teddy going up there.
Who do you see Bridgewater going to? Does anyone need him right now?
Off the top of my head, I mean, not really. I mean, maybe a Miami or something because Miami needs everybody. They're awful. But other than that, I don't know. I mean, nothing off the top of my head. I can't think of anybody.
It's going to be something where if there's an injury, somebody goes down, they really get desperate. Because
I don't think it'll be right away. Maybe a couple weeks in or something, but I don't know.
You kind of feel for the guy. I mean, he showed promise early on in his career, and then it's just been injury after injury after injury, and now he's really struggled to. Unfortunately, you develop a reputation at a young age. There's kind of no coming back from it.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, he, like you said, he showed promise. Had a decent arm, speed. A decent locker room guy. I mean, I could definitely see him going somewhere to try to help out. Like I said, I can't think of anywhere right now.
And another injury tidbit: Patriots first-round draft pick, offensive lineman Isaiah Wynn, torn Achilles, out for the year.
Yeah, and that's a big blow. I mean, that's a first-round draft pick, and not even going to be able to use him for the entire season. We talked about this last week, and it's no fun seeing guys go down, especially bigger name guys or just anybody in general. But, I mean, seeing a draft pick go down, especially somebody who's supposed to protect Tom Brady, it's, not good.
What's the number one thing that you hear about teams that are leaning on veteran quarterbacks? Protect the passer. especially if Tom Brady, he's on the other end of 40 right now. I mean, this guy, like, you should be really counting your blessings as long as you have him on your team. You've got to protect this guy. This is what shortens careers when you don't have the offensive line protection. That's why Tony Romo's sitting in a broadcast booth right now. So
Tony Romo also sucks.
Yeah, up for discussion. I think it's in hindsight. It's funny you mentioned that. I mean, as a Giants fan, growing up hating the guy, I think in hindsight, taking a step back, he's probably going to go down as one of the top quarterbacks in league history to not, at least not play in a Super Bowl, if not the best to not win one, because I feel like Romo really had the short end of the stick in Dallas. I think that he played behind a lot of really bad lines. He didn't. And
now as soon as they have a good line, he's gone.
Exactly. You look at Prescott, a guy who's, for all things considered, a pretty average passer, who one year plays mistake-free, the next year doesn't play mistake-free, and you see the drop-off. But I think that if you put Romo behind that offensive line, this is a team that could have potentially gone to a Super Bowl. I mean, they got close during his second year as a starter back in 2007 when they were 13-3. This is kind of going far back, but I think most of his career, those 8-8 teams that he played on, Romo had his moments where he threw some. He seemed to not play his best football late in the season, but I don't think he played on very complete teams. I think a lot of the Cowboys' inconsistencies weren't necessarily due to him. But yeah, going back to the point about just protecting the passer. I mean, that's, you saw that's what happened to him. Just getting banged up with the back injuries, and you want to keep Tom Brady healthy, and losing that offensive line support, especially a promising rookie first round draft pick, because especially considering this is a year that I think a lot of people are speculating like this might be the first year in a while where the Patriots aren't the unanimous AFC East favorites. Like, they aren't going to win 13 or 14 games.
I mean, they're the Patriots. They always figure out a way to pull it off somehow. I mean, Belichick wouldn't be in the position he's in if he didn't know what the hell he was doing. So, I mean, I can see them, obviously playing up to Patriots caliber. Somehow they always figure it out. And it's no fun losing a guy like that, especially a guy, like you said, who's supposed to protect the quarterback. So hopefully they have somebody in mind, or they can move somebody over or move somebody up into that position. But to replace a first-round draft pick is never easy.
What do you see as far as their competition in the AFC East? Do you think that it's going to be tighter this year, or do you think they're going to coast?
I mean, it could go either way, obviously. I mean, I don't know. It's tough to judge it now. I think that I don't know. I don't know if they. I
think it's the Jets. I think that the Jets. I think the Jets are their top competition right now.
I think the Jets really need an elite pass rusher to really get them to where they need to be.
It goes back to putting pressure on Brady. Yeah,
correct. Yeah, it goes back to getting to the quarterback. I mean, I don't know. It's tough. I mean, even Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo is not terrible. We were talking about McCarron up there, and maybe if Josh Allen plays decently, but they got Benjamin, and they got a pretty good defense with Jordan Poyer in the secondary. He's proven himself to be a worthy safety. So I mean, I don't know. It could go either way. I mean, I don't know if the Patriots have the weapons that they used to have. I don't know if their defense is up to par, or if their offense. I mean, does Brady really have the weapons that he used to have? It should be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, with Gronk being a question mark now, with his injury history and a not so fantastic running game. I think get Jeremy Hill up as your number one on the depth chart right now. So but they always kind of find a way. They've always it's always been Brady and Belichick, and then getting other players to kind of fit into their game plan and what they want to do. So I mean they're going to be up there. I mean I definitely expect them to be a playoff team, of course, but and probably division winners. But it could be a tighter race this year. I think that the Jets have the capacity to be potentially a 10 or 11 win team. I think if Darnold arrives like they think he's going to, with the strides they took forward last year, I think that he can help them build off of that. And I think that this could be the Jets' first playoff season since 2010, 2011, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're the Jets. We'll find out. I mean, I'm not guaranteeing anything for the Jets in the playoffs in the same sentence.
No.
But it would be nice for the first time in 8-9 years.
Sure. And all right, I think that's gonna wrap up the NFL breaking news. Now it's time for our signature part of the show. The best part of the show, the most fun part of the show, the moment of the week. And I'm going to go first. My moment is going to be the Yankees first baseman Greg Bird's ridiculous post-game interview that he gave this past Thursday against the Tampa Bay Rays. Okay, so Rays won 3-1 on the Yankees. Bottom of the ninth inning, the Yankees had bases loaded and nobody out. Greg Bird up at the plate. This is against, your number one thing. You got to make this pitcher work. Make him uncomfortable. Make him feel this situation. Don't swing at the first pitch. He swings at the first pitch, fouls it out to third base, pops it straight up in the air. He's then interviewed about this afterward, and he's smiling, he's laughing it off. He's saying, hey, man, I'm just happy to be out there playing every day. And he's like, it's a little disappointing to not, because you want to pick those guys up, but, I'll have 5, 6, 7,000 more chances, so I'm not really that worried about it. And my jaw's on the floor as I'm listening to this. I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, if I'm the team, if I'm the front office, like, my head's got to be spinning at this point. Listen, Greg Bird, it is not a great accomplishment that you're finally staying healthy for one season. There's plenty of players who play every day, every year. And you're on the New York Yankees. You're expected to win. You came up in a huge situation for your team. And for you to not convey some degree of disappointment in your performance, the fact that you can just laugh it off and assume that you're going to have 5, 6, 7,000 more chances, that what makes you think that a whole season where you're batting barely over 200 with 10 home runs guarantees you a job for the next 10 years? That's what I want to ask. So Sonny Gray, right? Sonny Gray wasn't he smiling and laughing after pitching badly?
Yeah, now he can't.
Look where he is.
Now he can't even pitch in a mop-up spot.
Look where he is. I wouldn't doubt that he was spoken to about that. So I would hope that somebody pulled Greg Bird aside and said, "Hey, man, that's kind of a bad look for you. You might want to not say that sort of thing." So, of course, over the weekend he hits a couple of home runs. Still, as far as I'm concerned, show a little bit more fire. Show a little bit more competitiveness.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a division race. I mean, even if you think the AL East is out of reach, you're still in a race for that wild card, and losing games to teams like Tampa Bay is not something you can be doing. And with the bases loaded, down 2 runs, literally the only other worst thing he could have done was grounded into a double play, but even if he did, a run would have scored. So,
maybe.
Most likely.
Right.
However, don't pop up on the first pitch and then laugh. I mean, you want to be in good spirits, be in good spirits. You know who wouldn't have laughed? Paul O'Neill. He would have went in and beat a water cooler up because he was competitive and wanted to win. He would have been mad at himself that he popped up in a major RBI game-winning or tying
It's as big
situation.
as it gets to see. It's Yankee Stadium. You're down. What happens if you're down 3-1 in the ninth inning? Bases are loaded in a playoff game. I mean, it's about being. This type of situation prepares you for what you might have to face in the coming months when the games do matter. Like, yeah, you could say, "Oh, it's just some game against Tampa Bay. Who cares? Like, we got the wild card locked up. We're not catching the Red Sox." You've got to treat every game like it's preparing you for the big one, because however you get in the playoffs, that's the ultimate goal here. So, take it seriously.
Yeah, no laughing matter. And for my alt moment, the Mets, which I started with the first week of the alt moments, I ripped them apart, mainly Matt Harvey, or what they were doing for Matt Harvey. However, this week, of course, they're making me eat some crow. They won 24-4 against the Phillies. 24-4. Is that a football score with a safety? I mean, come on.
And they just lost 25-4 to the Nationals a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, 24-4 Phillies. What are you doing? You're in a playoff race, a major, tight playoff race, and you're allowing the Mets to just completely beat you to death. I mean, no matter who you threw out there, you put 2 position players on the mound, and everybody got smoked. I mean, for the love of God, what are you doing? Jose Bautista didn't have a job a month ago. He was a bum. He didn't have a job. He wasn't hired by anybody. He wasn't swinging a bat. 3 for 4, 7 RBIs. Grand slam. I mean, come on.
And because of that performance, he finally raised his average over 200.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's bad. That is absolutely atrocious.
They scored 10 runs in the 5th inning.
10 runs. 24 runs on
and it was at
25
home.
hits.
It was at home.
Yeah.
How do you think the Phillies fans felt watching that?
Not very good. I'm sure nobody really stayed. I mean, that's bad. Whoever bet the over-under on that one, I really hope you went on the over because, 28 runs is a lot more than 9.5. But, I mean, for the love of God, Phillies, do me a favor. Get it together. Pick your head up out of the dirt and figure it out.
When you're out of the playoffs by 1 game, you can look back to this game and think about why.
Yeah, when you don't make the playoffs by 1 game or even a half a game, look back and say, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't have given up 24 runs to the Mets. Just saying. Might help.
Well then, on that note, we're gonna wrap this baby up, and we'll be back at it next week. We're really inching closer as the NFL preseason. We're halfway through right now. Couple weeks we're looking at doing a big comprehensive season preview, which might have a special guest star. So be on the lookout for that. That's an episode that is going to be 100% football, nothing but football, and I'm really excited about it. So on that note, be sure to follow Call to the Bullpen on Facebook. Like us on Facebook, Call to the Bullpen Podcast. Be sure to check us out if you're currently listening to this on Spotify. Thank you.
Yes, we thank you for listening on Spotify. Yeah. Please share the page. Yeah. Let your friends know if you're liking the show. Give us some feedback. Check out the Facebook, like Jared said. Send us a little bit of feedback, questions, comments, concerns, your thoughts for the NFL season. We would love to hear what your projections are and predictions are for records, for who's going to win, for breakout stars, or what big names are not going to do well. Give us some feedback. Give us some thoughts. Send in your ideas. But definitely check us out on Spotify. If you're listening on our website, we appreciate that. But definitely go to Spotify, follow us, share the page.
And if you're not following us on Spotify, you can if you just search Call to the Bullpen Podcast, it'll pop right up. Also, check us out on calltothebullpenpodcast.libsyn.com. Be sure to listen, download, share, tell all your friends and family, the creepy guy that bothers you on the train, whoever will listen. It's cool. Everybody should hear it. So, on that note, this has been Call to the Bullpen.
And we are hanging up.